You've been hearing a lot about Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, and how companies can use information to target you, to influence your vote. Now, from whistleblowers, we're learning more about the role a Canadian company played in one of the most consequential vote results in recent history, the UK's decision to exit the EU.
Independence Day! The dawn is breaking on an independent, United Kingdom.
Fact, it was close. 51.9% voted to leave. Question, did all sides play by the rules? Possibly not, is the concern embedded in hundreds of documents landing at the UK Electoral Commission just a few days ago, providing some of the most compelling evidence yet that the Vote Leave campaign may have overspent its campaign limits, giving it an extra last-minute edge. A big deal? Well, here's how the lawyer putting together the dossier described it to CBC News.
Because the referendum was a close-fought contest. It's massively constitutionally significant. If there was overspending, then what has been trumpeted as the will of the people might have been, in fact, something that was paid for. That really matters.
The UK's Guardian, the New York Times, and the National have obtained access to some of the key documents, two of the whistleblowers, and the story of the Canadian connection.
We've got our country back.
How the Brexit vote came to in any way be associated with the small BC company started with an early morning email from now famous Canadian whistleblower Chris Wylie to another Canadian, an old colleague, Jeff Sylvester, back in August of 2013. It was about Wylie's job in London with what would be the parent company of Cambridge Analytica. CBC has seen a duplicate of the exchange. We mostly do psychological warfare work for NATO, Wylie offered, explaining its political and social campaigns too. You need a Canadian office, came the response from Sylvester. Basically, that's how the idea of AggregateIQ was born. By 2016, it was its own completely independent Canadian entity.
On June 24th, Vote Leave.
And a powerhouse on the official Vote Leave campaign.
40% of the Leave campaign spending went to this small, tiny company on Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada. And its role in Brexit is fairly central because it managed all of the digital and social targeting for the pro-Brexit campaign, for Vote Leave.
That effectively means pinpointing and reaching out to likely supporters.
But it's like...
Wylie was still in the picture, was introducing another friend, Shamir Sani, to work as a Vote Leave volunteer, as he told CBC News in a Canadian exclusive.
I joined the Vote Leave campaign as a volunteer several months before the referendum.
There he is, beaming in his Vote Leave shirt. He was soon asked to work on a youth outreach arm called Believe. The small Believe unit, Sani says, talking to, taking instruction from the established Vote Leave team, and more.
We were based in the Vote Leave office and we were in constant communication with other Vote Leave staff members because as volunteers we never saw ourselves as having full control over the outreach group because we didn't have the experience.
That's important. His words and the new supporting documentation offer what Sani's lawyer says is the first substantial evidence these groups worked closely together. Why does that matter?
So there's no rule against coordinating campaigns. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when two coordinated campaigns are used to exceed spending limits. This is about spending.
It's not clear that's what happened, but money, it seems, was an issue for Vote Leave. CBC has seen a witness testimony that suggests towards the end of the campaign, it was office chatter that Vote Leave was nearing its £7 million spending cap. To spend more would be breaking electoral law. But little Believe seemed to be just getting started. Sani, now in a leadership role, no longer just a youth branch. It was its own campaign organization with a smaller spending limit of its own. One day, Vote Leave officials brought good news. Believe was getting donations of roughly £625,000.
This was very close to referendum day. So by this time, so we had decided to give so we had been told that we have to give the money to AIQ, and AIQ being a Canadian company, I guess, who were actually based in the Vote Leave office. They were there till the last day. They were there on referendum day.
AIQ, that's AggregateIQ. So this Canadian-based company already working with Vote Leave that had, according to Sani, workers in the Vote Leave offices was now going to be paid to work with Believe. So what did Believe get for that money? Sani maintains it was just a few thousand phone numbers and emails. If he's right, he says that seems like a lot of money for not much return. Did AIQ really spend it all on Believe, or did it go elsewhere?
There's a hole in this story, which is precisely what AIQ did with all the money they were given by campaigners in the EU referendum. What happened to that money? Who were they working for, and what messages did they put out, to whom, using what data?
AIQ told CBC News in a statement the money it received was only used for Believe's campaign and purposes and no other purpose. Vote Leave and Believe have both issued statements saying they were completely separate entities and spending caps were not violated. But this doesn't seem to sit well with Sani.
Why are we being constantly told by senior staff members of Vote Leave that we didn't coordinate when we so obviously did? One reason I'm doing this is because the people of this country were lied to.
You can't undo Brexit. Once Brexit happens, it's done. And for me, what's so concerning is that the scale of cheating that happened potentially on the referendum, irrespective of whether you supported Remain or Leave, this is an irreversible change to the constitution of a country.
So these are hard statements to make. And so in all of this, what of AggregateIQ? What did it know or do? In an email response to CBC, AIQ wrote, AIQ works in full compliance within all legal and regulatory requirements in all jurisdictions where it operates. It has never knowingly been involved in any illegal activity, adding it was not aware of any evidence of coordination between Vote Leave and Believe to break any rules. Wendy Mesley has been working on the story for her Sunday morning program, The Weekly. Wendy, we just saw that there are questions about AggregateIQ in the United Kingdom, but there are questions here as well.
It's really interesting. We know that the UK Information Commissioner is investigating Cambridge Analytica. Late last week, it got a warrant to go in and search the Cambridge Analytica offices in London. And part of that investigation includes the company's links to AggregateIQ. So, of course, that company, AIQ, is based in BC. So trying to figure out what's going on here, I spoke to the province's Privacy Commissioner, and he says, yes, they are cooperating with the UK's investigation into the possible unauthorized use of people's data for political purposes, and whether AIQ may have been involved here. So I, of course, wanted to know exactly what are you looking at, and he says, well, there's an ongoing investigation. I can't hear and in the UK, so he can't give us any details. So I said, well, what then is the general concern?
Well, the concern is that information cannot be disclosed or even collected or disclosed unless we have informed consent of the individual. So if people didn't know that their information was being used, then that's offside with our privacy legislation here in BC. And we want to know the facts around, did they collect information, did they use it, and did they disclose it to anyone else for purposes that people might not be aware of?
Yeah, so people may not know this, but BC has particularly tight privacy laws, so that's interesting. There have been suggestions from the UK Privacy Commissioner that AIQ has not been fully cooperating with her investigation. So I asked MacArthur, are they fully cooperating with your investigation? He said, it's early days, didn't ask the question, but that he does have the power to go to court and compel AIQ to fully cooperate if necessary.
So we know that AIQ knows about all of these inquiries. What's it actually saying about them, though?
Well, the company's not giving interviews anymore, but it did send me a statement where it said about MacArthur and the Privacy Office, saying AggregateIQ is and always has been cooperating fully with the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner for BC. AIQ also stressed to us that it has never been a part of Cambridge Analytica or its parent company, SCL. But that's odd because the co-founder of AIQ told me a couple of weeks ago in a phone conversation that, yes, it had sold its data technology to SCL, the parent company of Cambridge Analytica. So there are some links here. What are they exactly? Well, we'll have to wait for the investigators to report.
Okay, a lot more to come. Wendy Mesley, thanks very much.
Oh, thanks, Adrian.
And those investigations are top of mind tonight in Britain's halls of power. Theresa May facing critical new questions about the Brexit vote. That's because people who now advise the British Prime Minister are directly linked to these new allegations. Thomas Dagler picks up the story from London.
As Brexit draws closer, people here look back at the referendum with more and more questions. And second thoughts are turning bitter.
I can see that there could be some underhand business going on, and we've all got sucked into it.
Well, if it's true, it's really unforgivable. But I mean, it's hard to know exactly what the facts were.
That's where Kyle Taylor comes in, a Canadian-American activist for electoral transparency based here in the UK.
Here on the evidence page, we've got what the Electoral Commission says is sort of coordination.
His Fair Vote campaign is sharing the whistleblower's emails and documents for the whole country to see. Files that purportedly show coordination between Brexit campaigns that may have allowed Vote Leave to cheat.
I hope that people are outraged and worried because what happened here can happen again, and and from what we've seen has happened all around the world.
Boris Johnson, a leading voice for Brexit, now Britain's foreign secretary, called the allegations utterly ludicrous. Vote Leave won fair and square and legally, he tweeted.
The individuals concerned have denied it. It's really a matter, if there's any truth to it at all, for the Electoral Commission to investigate.
Making matters even more awkward, at 10 Downing Street, two of the Vote Leave officials under media scrutiny now work here as advisors to the Prime Minister. One of them, Stephen Parkinson, responded to the allegations by denying wrongdoing and revealing his past relationship with the whistleblower, Shamir Sani.
Outing him as gay to his family in the world, family he has in Pakistan, who are now fearing for their safety. I mean, what have we come to?
This MP says an investigation by the elections watchdog isn't enough.
The police need to come in. I mean, this is criminal law. This is criminal law breaking, if it's true.
There's no plan for Britons to get a second say on leaving the EU. The country continues its slow drift toward Brexit. The truth around the vote is as murky as ever. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, London.